What's going on, everyone? With the end of the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 beta, I thought it would be a great time to just go through and talk about everything I loved and everything I hated about this beta. So we're just going to split them up into the good and the bad, and there's a bunch of things in them. Some of them are really big things, some of them are very small, and let's just get right into it. Starting off with the good, obviously the time to kill and the movement. Got to start with those two things because I think those are the best two things about this game. Very happy to finally have a slower time to kill back in Call of Duty because we had 2 years with a much faster time to kill, and I was sick of that. I really do enjoy the slower time to kill. I think it makes the game a lot more skill-based. Your skill matters more, your accuracy matters more. There's a lot more gunfights involved in the game rather than them ending like instantly. You actually have some decent gunfights there. And I also do believe the game is a little faster paced because of it, because you are actually encouraged to rush a little bit, and you can actually rush objectives without having to worry about getting destroyed across the map by someone who's not even really trying. I think the time to kill is just fantastic in this game. I get there's some people who don't really like a slower time to kill, and that's totally fine. You can prefer whatever you want to prefer, so I do hope they at least add a 100 HP playlist for those players who do not like the 150 HP in this game, so they can have something to enjoy throughout the year, rather than just complaining about the time to kill the whole year, which is what I'm expecting to hear if Sledgehammer does not add a mode like that. I think that'd be really cool to have like a 150 HP playlist, then you have Hardcore, which I believe is 30 HP, and then add something in the middle that's 100 HP. I think that would be awesome. And then, of course, with the movement, it's just a lot faster paced. You can actually get around the map very quickly. You can mantle really quickly. ADS speeds are not ridiculously slow. They're actually decently fast in this game. Sprint to fire speeds are decently fast. There's a lot of attachments that will increase those as well. Even some perks that help with that. So overall, the movement is just so much better than the past couple Call of Duties. Vanguard's movement was pretty good as well, but I do think this is better than those games. I do think it feels really smooth. There's only like one issue with it, that whole like slide delay thing, which they did fix a little bit, but they didn't fully remove the slide delay. There still is one there, but it's not as noticeable as it was in the first weekend of the beta, so I'm not really going to include that in my bad section of this video because it's not really that big of a deal to me currently. Would I prefer it wasn't there? Sure, but I think it works perfectly fine. Movement is solid in this game. Next positive would be the gun balance. It's actually really damn good, which I'm surprised about because the beta usually has some rough balance. There's usually some really OP guns, and then a lot of other guns are just really weak, but honestly, like, I had some pretty decent games with pretty much every gun in this game, except for maybe like the snipers, only because I'm not that good with snipers. I'm sure if I was good with them, they would be very useful, but they're just not my types of guns to use. And shotguns, I don't really mess around with them too much either. But in terms of the ARs, every single one of them, every SMG, most of the TAC rifles and the battle rifles and all those guns, the LMGs as well, pretty much all of them are viable. Even the pistols are very viable in this game. And I keep hearing, people saying, oh, slow time to kill is bad because then it's harder to balance the weapons, which is true. The devs are going to have a harder time to balance the weapons, but that doesn't mean it's impossible for them to balance them, and they clearly did here. There is clearly good gun balance here, even with the slow time to kill. I don't feel like one-shot weapons are dominating the game. I do think you can do just fine with any gun in the game. I mean, it's normally like 5 shots to kill with an AR in this game. Depending on the distance, it might be a little bit more, but I think it's perfect. I've really had good results with pretty much every gun, like I said, the guns that I have used, and I'm not really against it. I'm really worried for launch, though, because we're going to have all those Modern Warfare 2 guns thrown in there, then you're going to have the new Modern Warfare 3 guns, and I do think there's probably going to be balance issues for the launch of this game, but currently, right now in the beta, it was solid. I don't think there was really many issues with balancing. They had some issues in the first weekend with the Striker being a little too good, but they nerfed it, and now it seems to be balanced properly. And keeping on the topic of balance, I think the perks are very balanced as well. Not fully. There are a couple exceptions where a couple of perks should definitely be tweaked a little bit. Maybe some of them should be buffed, or some of them should be nerfed. I'm not going to go into specifics about which examples I'm referring to, but there are a few that definitely need to be tweaked a bit. And I do think they're probably going to do that for launch, especially because we're going to get more perks as well. So hopefully they'll fix all that, they'll figure that all out, but for the most part, I think it is balanced well. There's definitely a couple perks within each tier that I have been using. I think the only one that I think is definitely too OP right now is the Covert Sneakers, which is of course Dead Silence, because it completely just eliminates your footsteps, but I don't think that will be OP when the full game comes out if they just balance some of the other perks in that tier. And then, of course, maybe like make the other perk, I think the awareness perk in this game, make that a little more powerful so it can actually be a counter to the Dead Silence perk, to the point where Dead Silence is not necessarily going to be overpowered in this game. So I really enjoy the balance for the most part, though. I just wanted to point that out. And then in terms of attachments as well, dude, there is a lot of great balance here. Like, I really don't feel like there's that many weak attachments that just destroy the gun like they do in Modern Warfare 2. There's so many attachments in Modern Warfare 2 that just destroy the gun and make it completely unusable. But I feel like every attachment here I can see a use for. Pretty much everyone. Maybe there's a couple exceptions. Again, there's definitely always exceptions, but for the most part, I feel like the balance is there and it's really, really good. And with the vests as well, there's actually really good balance within the 4 vests that they have. And I really hope they add more vests because I'm in love with the vests. And we should talk about that next because the vest is one of the coolest things that Call of Duty has done in a long time, because I've been saying for years that I do not like the Gunsmith class system because it is not taking any elements from Pick 10, and it should be, because Pick 10 is a great system and really deserves to shine a little bit more, and Gunsmith has just kind of like not allowed any Pick 10 elements to kind of go into it, except for in Cold War where we had wildcards, and that was the only time we ever had it. And vests is kind of like wildcards, but not exactly. It's close enough, and if they add a lot more vests, I think this could definitely be very close to being a Gunsmith Pick 10 hybrid that we've all been asking for. I don't think it's fully that hybrid. I think there's definitely a better way to do a hybrid, but this is definitely close enough to the point where I'm okay with this class system, and I'm not complaining about it like I was the last 2 Call of Duties. So vests are really awesome. The fact that I can use one, take out my lethals, so I don't use any, I don't need lethals. I don't care about using grenades. I really don't. So I don't mind getting rid of those. And then in return, I get an extra perk. Like, of course I'm going to do that. Like, that's a good way to just increase the amount of customization in classes. And that's why Pick 10 had so much customization, is because you had all these different options to either get more perks for less of something else or more attachments for less of something else. I loved that customization, and the trade-offs were very balanced. And so far here with the vests, I do think the trade-offs are very balanced as well. Another thing I'd like to say is the maps actually play pretty great here. Not perfectly. There's exceptions to the rule. There's definitely some problems with some of the maps, but for the most part, I'm very happy with how these maps actually flow in this game. Of course, we've had these maps before. We've even had some of these maps remade before, but honestly, I think they play outstanding in this game, better than they did even in the original Modern Warfare 2. For the most part, again, I gotta make that very clear, for the most part, I think the movement, the time to kill, all of that just makes these maps a lot faster paced than they were prior. Estate is probably the best example. I think Estate was pretty bad in the original Modern Warfare 2. Never liked the map, but honestly in this game, I think it's okay. Like, I genuinely am okay with it. I think it's still the worst map in the game, but I still enjoy it. I don't mind playing on Estate in this game. I actually am like, okay, that's fine. I'll play Estate. I don't really mind it. Which is crazy to me because in Modern Warfare 2, if Estate ever showed up, I would be disgusted. I'd be like, I don't want to play this. But in this game, I don't really mind. There's not a single map in this game that showed up that I had a big issue with it showing up. I was always like, oh, that's fine. I don't mind playing this map. Which, again, did not expect that. And then lastly, I just want to point out that the brand new game mode, Cutthroat, is actually really fun, the 3v3v3 mode. I think it's a good alternative to Gunfight. I don't know if they're actually going to plan on adding Gunfight later in for DLC, but I don't think they have to, and I kind of hope they don't, because Gunfight just kind of took away from probably content that would come to 6v6 to begin with, because they'd be adding all these maps in that are not going to be available in 6v6. I'd rather they just spend that time on 6v6 maps, and then have this Cutthroat mode that you can play on these 6v6 maps itself. It's a pretty fun mode. It's basically, like I said, just like Gunfight, but 3v3v3, and right now you get to use your own classes. I'm not sure if it's going to change for launch. I kind of hope it's more like Gunfight, where it gives you random classes every time rather than just giving you whatever guns you want, because that was kind of the main appeal of Gunfight, was that everyone was using the exact same classes. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what they're going to do for launch, but it's a fun mode. And then of course Ground War also in this game I think is pretty fun. I only played a couple matches on it and I enjoy it. I think it's fine. Now let's get into the bad, and there's definitely a few big things here. First of all, skill-based matchmaking I think is the obvious one. I've been saying this for every year since Modern Warfare 2019, and it's probably not going to change. Skill-based matchmaking, and at least the way it is implemented in this game, is just a problem. It really is. I don't like the manipulation of your performance game to game. It basically feels like, you know, you shouldn't be doing too good too often, because then you know your next few games are probably not going to be very fun, because you're going to be going up against people who are probably much better than you, honestly. That's kind of how it works. Like, the word skill-based matchmaking is not the best way to describe this system, because it's not really how it works. If it just gave you lobbies with people of your same skill level all the time, I honestly don't think it would be as big of a problem, because it would be like, okay, you're just going to play your own skill level, sure, that's fine. But that's not really how it works. It bases your skill based on your past few games' performance. So if your past few games' performance were like way beyond how you normally do, then you're not going to be put up against your own skill. It's going to be people who are even better than you. And that's just how it works. And then if you get, completely destroyed in those lobbies, well, now the game's going to be like, okay, this guy's not doing very good, so let's put him in some easier lobbies with people who aren't as good. And it's just like, again, it's manipulating your performance, and I don't really like that. I, of course, think that there should be some level of skill-based matchmaking. There always had in Call of Duty. It's not like that's never existed. Pretty much every PvP game has some level of it, and I don't mind it because, yeah, of course, if you're really bad at the game, you shouldn't be getting lobbies with people who are just insanely good. Like, that's not, that's not good. And I also don't think that if you're really, really good, like, it's not really that fun to be only playing against people who are very bad. Of course, there needs to be some level of, matchmaking abilities there that kind of puts players that are really bad in a certain lower tier bracket. Like, that makes sense, but not to the extent at which the recent Call of Duties have been doing. And one of the worst things about skill-based matchmaking doesn't even have to do with the actual matchmaking itself. The worst thing about it is the disbanding of the lobbies. Like, obviously, the whole lobby disbanding only happens because of skill-based matchmaking, and if we didn't have skill-based matchmaking, our lobbies wouldn't disband. And I really, I didn't have a big issue with lobby disbanding before, but whenever I play with my friends and we get into those fun banters with the enemy team, that is when lobby disbanding becomes the biggest issue possible, because it takes away that community aspect of Call of Duty completely. I was literally playing Search and Destroy with my friend the other day who does not play Call of Duty anymore. He's a very, casual COD player who rarely plays Call of Duty. He hasn't bought a Call of Duty since, I want to say, Infinite Warfare. I'm not even joking. He only will play Call of Duty if it's one of those free weekends, or sometimes he plays Warzone. And I got him to play the beta when it was open, access to everyone. And so he played, and we played some Search and Destroy. And his first thought after our first Search game, he enjoyed it. He had a good time, but he was really liking the whole community aspect because we were yelling at the other team and they were yelling back. And it was pretty fun. We had teammates as well that were all talking in the game chat. And that's that fun, OG COD classic feeling. And then the second the game ends, it backs us out. And he's like, well, what happened? Why did you leave? And I'm like, I didn't leave. That's just how the game works. There's disbanding lobbies. You can't continue that same lobby. And he got pissed. He's like, well, that's stupid. And I agree with him. It is stupid. Don't disband the lobbies. If you're going to do skill-based matchmaking, at least make it so that lobbies don't disband. I mean, there's really no reason to do it. I get you want, to make sure people are in different lobbies for the sake of skill-based matchmaking, but I honestly feel like it's counterintuitive, because sometimes when you stay in a lobby, it's because you're really enjoying it. The only reason I ever leave a lobby is if I'm like, okay, this lobby isn't really fun anymore. That's when I back out. But if I'm still in it, it means I'm enjoying myself. I'm having a good time. And to say, oh, we need to force this person out of there because whatever reason is stupid. And if somebody does not have a good time, they will back out themselves and find a different lobby. And that's when you can activate your little skill-based matchmaking algorithm magic to make sure that the person is put into a lobby that suits how their experience has been. And I know this is probably going to mean, okay, people, if they're really enjoying the lobbies, they're just going to stay in. But isn't that a good thing? I don't really get it. I don't get why their algorithm needs this to work in that way, for it to be that way. I don't get it. They need to change that, though, because that's a big problem right now. Next up, I want to talk about score streaks. I'm honestly not happy with the streaks in this game currently, the whole system about it as well. I don't think it's bad. It's definitely better than a game like Modern Warfare 2019 or Vanguard, where we just had kill streaks and that was it. This game, of course, we have the kill streak, score streak toggle, just like what we had last year. And of course, that's better than not having score streaks at all. But I honestly still feel like there's no reason to have kill streaks in this game. There is zero reason. There's no advantage to using kill streaks in any mode. They balance them in a way where score streaks are they're better in every mode. It was like that in Modern Warfare 2. It's the same thing this game. There's no reason not to use score streaks. You are putting yourself at a disadvantage. So why have kill streaks as the default thing for every player? Because we keep having this issue where a lot of casual players won't even know that score streaks exist, so they'll just use kill streaks by default, and then they won't be encouraged to play the objective. I think it would make a lot more sense to either make score streaks the default or just remove kill streaks. There's really no reason to have them. And I think the existence of kill streaks are also inadvertently causing other issues with the streak system that we didn't have when score streaks were just the default in games like Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 2, and all those Call of Duties. And that would be the fact that the streaks do not loop in this game. They haven't in the past couple Call of Duties, but like I said, back in the traditional score streak Call of Duty games, yes, they looped, which looping means you can earn them again in the same life. Let's say you're running UAV, counter UAV, and I don't know, the Juggernaut or something, and you earn all those in one life. Right after you earn that Juggernaut, that final streak, you just start earning them again. You start over from scratch and you can start earning UAV in that same life. But in this game, you cannot do that. You couldn't do that for the past couple Call of Duties, and I still think it's a big problem because it just discourages people from wanting to stay alive. After I get my Juggernaut, I don't really care much about trying to stay alive longer. Of course, you can go for the nuke streak, but that's such a big jump. You go from a 900 score streak, which isn't that much, to a 25 gun streak as being the next thing you can earn it when you keep staying alive. That's a massive jump. There needs to be something else to earn within that time, and of course that would just be you're earning your score streaks again. And I don't really understand why they haven't had this. I don't know if having score streaks and kill streaks at the same time is making them do this. Maybe they think it wouldn't work with kill streaks, and I personally just don't feel that way. I feel like you could still do it even with having kill streaks there, but if they felt like they couldn't, again, just remove kill streaks and it removes that problem, and then you can have them loop just like the traditional score streaks always did. And another issue that I believe kill streaks could inadvertently be causing is the fact that there are some streaks that are the same value as each other, because obviously when they're kill streaks, they can't specify them too much. They can't have a streak that's 3.5 kills or 4.5 kills, but when you do score streaks, you can obviously do that. You can have them being 450 score rather than just 400, 500, 600. You can have some that are in between. And because there's kill streaks in the game, they did this thing where a lot of streaks are the same value, and they don't let you use 2 streaks of the same value, which is a problem in my opinion, because it kind of just takes away from how much you can actually customize your loadout with your streaks back in the score streak Call of Duties. Again, I'm going to keep going back to those traditional score streak CODs. You could use any 3 streaks, any combination. It does not matter. You can do whatever you want, and I really wish this game would allow that as well. And I don't see why having kill streaks is taking that away, because yes, you might have streaks that are the same value, but why not just make it so you earn those 2 streaks at the same time? If you have 2 streaks that are, let's say, 8 kills to get each, why not just make it so when you get 8 kills, you just earn both the streaks at the same time? There's really no reason why they can't allow that. I don't really see the problem. Let people do that, or at least just, again, remove kill streaks and just keep score streaks, and then make the values different so you can earn them at different times. It's a pretty simple solution in my opinion, but they just haven't really decided to do that for a long time. The only recent Call of Duty that we've had that actually did this was, of course, Cold War, but they had that whole other score streak system that I personally wasn't a fan of. So the last time we had traditional score streaks that actually had, the ability to loop them and the ability to just use whatever streaks you want was Black Ops 4, and I really want to see that again. And I'm not even done talking about streaks. There's a lot more issues with the streaks in this game. They're also not that powerful. I'm not really happy with the ones we currently have. Now, of course, there's not many streaks in the game currently. They're definitely going to be adding a lot more for launch. Hopefully, they'll even add some for DLC, but I really hope we can get more powerful streaks that are more useful, because currently right now, I didn't really have much fun with the streaks available to us in the game. I used the Juggernaut an insane amount of times, and the Juggernaut is not that high of a streak either. It was only 950 score to get. I want streaks that are way higher than that. There should be streaks that are up to 2,000 score to get. That should be the case. I don't know why they're so afraid of making streaks of higher value. You should make really high value streaks that are really powerful. Give us a swarm or something from Black Ops 2 that is 2,000 score to get. That would be awesome. Of course, I mentioned before that the time to kill is really great, but one little tiny issue I have with it is I do feel like the health regen could be increased just a little bit faster. It's kind of slow right now, but I'm not against that too much. It's just the fact that right now that we don't have actual stims in the game, we have the battle rage thing. It's a little different than actual stims. I'm sure once the full game comes out, we're going to have stims, and that won't be as much of a problem, but they don't have the stims from Cold War or Black Ops 4 most likely, and if they did, I wouldn't really have an issue with this, but because we're probably not going to see that, I do think the health regen should just be a tiny bit quicker. Keep the time to kill how it is exactly, but just make that health regen just a little faster. I think that would be great. Another thing is the spawns are not great right now. I mentioned before I love the maps and how they play, but only for the most part, because the only issue affecting the maps right now is some of the spawns on some of the maps. It's not the worst thing ever. I think some people are exaggerating a little bit, but there is definitely some places where, yes, the spawns need some fixing, especially with them flipping a little bit too often. I've noticed, especially on maps like High Rise, if I try to flank the enemies, immediately it flips. And of course that should happen, but only if you put a lot of pressure onto that spawn with a lot of teammates going there. You shouldn't just have one player go to the enemy spawn and then boom, it flips. It just doesn't really work that well. And you'll be seeing a lot of spawn issues mostly on Rust, which of course it's a smaller map, it's bound to have more spawn issues, but you shouldn't be spawning right next to someone else, and someone else should not be spawning right next to you. they need to definitely work those things out. I think, you know, it's a beta. I don't think we've ever had a multiplayer beta for Call of Duty that hasn't had spawn issues. So it wasn't something I was too surprised about, but definitely something they need to work on. And now a couple of like UI related things that aren't major problems, but still matter to me in some ways. First of all, the teammate name tags as well as the enemy name tags still need some work. They did add enemy name tags finally, which I'm very happy about. And they definitely made them a little bit more visible than before with the teammate name tags, but they do need to do more work with that. Make the actual name tag itself a lot bolder, less transparent, make it so it's very obvious that you can see it right in your face, so you don't have to have that situation of not knowing if that's a teammate or an enemy right away. They definitely need some work on that. Another thing that is kind of UI related is the scoreboard. Show us deaths on the scoreboard in every mode, please. I'm so annoyed with the fact that the past few Call of Duties, they just don't want to do that. Unless it's like Team Deathmatch, they just don't show deaths on the scoreboard and you have to wait till the game's over to see your deaths. Let me see my deaths during the match. I don't care about seeing my teammates and the enemy's deaths. I don't care about any of that. I just want to see my own deaths on the scoreboard. Cold War let us see that. Black Ops 4 let us see that. And every COD before that let us see that. Let us see it in every single mode during the match, please. Also, something a few recent Call of Duties have been doing very often, but this game doesn't have, is a killstreak counter. So basically showing you on the screen what killstreak you're on after every single kill. So it pops up on the screen like, oh, this is your first kill, this is your second kill, this is your third kill. I would love to see that return because it's good to know if you're trying to go for a nuke or you're curious to see how far of a killstreak you're on. It's just a nice thing to have. I'd really love for them to add that. And my last issue I'm going to talk about in this video is actually going to have to do with some of the color palettes on some of these maps. I did mention in my first review for the first impressions, I did say that the color palette was good, the game looks great, everything is great with visibility, but honestly, the more I played it, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see the issue, especially on some of these maps like Skid Row especially. The color palette needs some work, and I don't really think it's the actual map itself. I think it's just they have this like filter over the game that makes it kind of like washed out, like the colors look washed out, which does affect visibility and also just makes the game not look as good as it probably could. So I definitely hope they can work on that a little bit, just make it a little bit more colorful, make it a little more, I don't know, vibrant, I guess, just so you can see enemies better and just have better visibility from longer ranges. I would love to see that. And yep, that's pretty much all the negatives I have. There's really not a lot of problems with this game. Those problems, most of them are very fixable, stuff that I actually expect to be changed for the full game. But some of them, of course, like skill-based matchmaking, it's like, I don't really expect that to change. And unfortunately, that's just the way it's going to be. But I do think there is a lot of promise to this game. So far, I am loving Modern Warfare 3. I genuinely think this is going to end up being one of the best Call of Duty multiplayers. Right now, for me, just from the beta, it's in my top 10. So out of the 17 mainline Call of Duty titles, it is in my top 10 for sure, which is very good accomplishment for just the beta. That is awesome. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. I will see you all in my next one. Peace out.